New Kent County, Ms. Page.
Here.
Powhatan County, Mr. Nordvig.
Good morning. Here.
Thank you. Town of Ashland, Mr. McGraw.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, and we have certified we have a quorum. Thank you very much, Ms. Fusco. Okay, we can move now into old business. Mr. Nordvig.
Yeah, again, good morning, everybody. And as you see, the action item here is the meeting minutes on page 4 of the packet. If anybody has any changes, deletions, additions, now's the time to speak up. Otherwise, we can entertain a motion to accept it.
So moved, Mr. Chair. Cynthia Newville.
Thank you, Dr. Newville.
A second. Okay.
And a second from Ms. Page. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the meeting minutes from the last 2 executive committee meetings, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Nordvig.
You're welcome. We're now enshrined in the minutes of this meeting. Thanks.
I don't know if I've ever been enshrined before. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Okay, and I don't know if Mr. Gregory has joined us yet.
Not yet. I'm texting him to see if he is able to join this morning, but I can pinch hit if you like.
That's your call, Ms. Heater. I would appreciate if you could, and I do see Mr. Winslow has joined us, Ms. Fusco. And I think everybody else has been on. All right, yeah, Martha, if you wouldn't mind giving us an update on the charter agreement revisions.
Sure. For your reference, the packet materials, just because we're in the habit of saving paper, I know we're doing everything digital now, but the proposed charter amendments are included in the full commission packet. So Sid is driving the view screen today. So if we need to look at that this morning, we can definitely do that through the full commission packet. You will recall that in November at our commission meeting, we had a lengthy discussion and review from Mr. Gregory with regard to the proposed charter revisions. He outlined, I think, very thoroughly the set of additions or amendments that were being proposed, and the board did authorize staff to push those out to the local jurisdictions to be able to initiate the charter revision process. The charter actually doesn't get revised by the commission itself. It is a product of the jurisdictions that are a part of the commission. And so to amend the charter, local jurisdictions must individually take action on the same set of charter amendments, and the collection of those local actions would signify an amendment to the charter. It must be unanimous, so to speak, for each of the local governing bodies to agree to the same set of charters. Not at the local level does the vote have to be unanimous, but all 9 jurisdictions have to have a majority yes vote to be able to move forward with charter revisions. We did get feedback after pushing the proposed charter amendments out that there were some concerns with regard to some of the proposed amendments. And so we've worked with staff and legal counsel, or we've started referring to them as kind of the Council of Councils, through Eric Gregory, to identify what we believe would be a satisfactory set of amendments for the charter revision. And this is back on your agenda this morning. I wanted to be able to take a little bit of time to introduce this on the executive committee agenda this morning, to be able to equip you all. I think I've had a chance to speak with some of you about this, some of your county administrators, but we wanted to be able to have a discussion today before going into the full commission meeting. Some of you have probably had a chance to speak with your colleagues at the local level to be able to weigh in and advise whether or not this revised set of amendments are in fact acceptable. Our desire has been throughout this entire process to obviously not get, we know that you can't get a confirmation until you can get a confirmation, but we wanted to make sure that we were going forward with a set of amendments that everyone can agree with. So without further ado, the text that is included in your packet for this morning at the 9 o'clock meeting is inclusive of all of the charter amendments that were discussed last month, with the exception, and Sid, if you don't mind actually scrolling to the full commission packet and the charter revisions, thank you. If you'll scroll down for me, Sid, and go to the section where you see that, yeah, this is the perfect spot. Thank you. You'll see that we have left the section here with regard to appointment of members of the governing body as is. The previous version that you reviewed had additional tiers of population in 75,000 person increments above and beyond the 250,001 person population. The original proposed amendments included those additional tiers, and it also included additional governing body votes to correspond with those additional tiers. That particular change was communicated back to us that there were some concerns about that, and so we've put a draft set of amendments forward that exclude that particular change. All of the other changes in the document hold from last time, and I'm grateful to see Mr. Gregory's here because he can probably speak to this a little bit better than I. But Eric, I just kind of went through what we discussed last time. You did a really great job of thoroughly reviewing all of the proposed amendments. We pushed this out for local government consideration. We did get informal feedback from some of the jurisdictions that there were concerns with regard to this specific section 2, that's on the view screen. And so we've included an alternative draft in the materials for the full commission meeting packet this morning that exclude those changes relative to additional appointments based on population in excess of 250,000. And Eric, I will definitely defer to you if you would like to elaborate.
Thank you, Martha, and I apologize for being late. We had a bit of a mishap this morning, but we're online now. So thank you for your understanding and patience there. I think Martha did a marvelous job presenting this again, and as she mentioned, the only change to the draft before you that we're recommending today is to remove that additional voting seat tier. Based upon the increased population, which we understand has not been warmly received by some of the jurisdictions. So happy to answer any questions. There is one additional change that I might recommend, although I don't think it's absolutely necessary and I don't want to cause any more confusion, but happy to discuss that with you if you would like, but I think leaving it alone is also probably fine. That would be Article 3, if you wouldn't mind scrolling down real quick. Article 3, Section 3 on page 3. There it is. So right now it reads, each alternate member appointed to the commission shall have one equal vote in all matters before the commission, but only in the absence of the elected official on the governing body for which they have been designated as an alternate member. And it includes the minor revision there. In order to make that section consistent with section 5 above in Article 2, I would suggest it read, each alternate member appointed to the commission shall hold the same voting authority as the designated governing body official. And I apologize for this late change, but it was one of those things that wasn't, we were focusing on other sections and didn't see this sort of one hanging out there. So that's one minor additional amendment that we'd like to push out.
That's a great catch. Thank you for. So my hope in having this on the agenda for this committee this morning is to, one, equip you with the information and to be able to discuss it in this group. Also to be able to talk through what the implications of this particular set of changes are. I certainly do not want to speak for anyone on the executive committee, but it is my understanding through informal communication that It's possible that this set of changes could be approved by some of our jurisdictions as early as the end of this month. And so I think we are eager to make sure that jurisdictions don't move forward with approving the proposed amendments if others are not ready or are not in support of the proposed amendment. So again, I think we all are very well aware that until the vote is asked for at the local level, that is when the decision is made. But we do want to, as best as possible, air any concerns and consistencies or desires that we think might crop up in discussions back at home before jurisdictions take action, because it's, you know, one of those things that we don't really want to have to go back and ask a jurisdiction to redo their action a second time. I will also say that informally, we have received word that it's possible that this particular set of changes with the removal of the changes on the increased seats on the board, so to speak, by virtue of population, may have implications on our funding. As you are aware, we currently administer an assessment at typically a rate of 55 cents per capita for local member dues. At our last meeting, the commission did instruct staff to request local member dues for fiscal year FY 2022 at a rate of 50 cents per capita, with recognition of the current economic challenges that all of our jurisdictions are facing. We have initiated that, and today is the deadline for our second application. However, I am aware that some of the jurisdictions have concerns that if there is a limit on the governing body votes that are available to jurisdictions, that they feel that would have implications on their ability to fund the agency at a level above 250,000 in population. So wanted to put that on the table. I have made the commitment to the administrators and to those of you that I've had a chance to speak with one-on-one that if that is the decision, we will make the budget work. I can't say that it will be easy. It will probably require some difficult choices on our end from a programmatic and a personnel perspective, but we understand the logic and are prepared to move forward if that is the decision of the board and for the good of the region. So I don't know if other executive committees members want to sort of speak to that more directly, but Mr. Spoonhour, have I done an okay job of kind of teeing this up for your all's discussion?
I think you've done an excellent job.
Thank you.
So out of this, yes, I'm not sure who this is.
Good morning, everyone. I guess I have an initial question, and that is there anything out there that is requiring this vote today? And the reason I ask that is I sense that maybe discussions are continuing in some cases, and wonder if more time spent and perhaps I know in some jurisdictions we've got folks coming into seats. I just wonder if this could not be deferred if we can't reach an agreement.
Mr. Winslow, I'd love to address that. I like that line of thinking. What I've come to understand is that the localities that have requested some of these changes had tasked the team at PlanRVA to get this in by the end of the year, so that, and this was, I believe, brought up in mid-October, so to turn this around very quickly in order to meet the assignments of the new their new members as the a lot of us change up each year, and I also know there's been a request to hold based for some of these regional boards, but I think it's a great question. I did want to kind of speak up that the request came from the county administrators to get this in by the end of the year, so there was a sense of urgency placed on them by the county administrators. Is that fair, Ms. Heater?
Yeah, I think the original intent was absolutely that, to be able to position the local governments during their organizational meetings in January, which is when most of you meet to do assignments, to be able to position you to reorient as necessary the appointments based on the voting structure that's proposed here. And I think it was also in recognition of the transition of some local government bodies and the fact that we've got movement in the city council come January with the new council members coming in.
But I know I would be in support of that.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Mr. Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There is no requirement that the PlanRVA board vote to approve this today or at any time. The reason staff is recommending that the PlanRVA board vote on it is to place a stamp of approval on it before it's distributed or at the time it's distributed to the local governing body members. Now, however, what makes the charter amendments effective is the approval at the local level.
Right.
So if there's some concern among the PlanRVA board to withhold action on this today for any reason, that's certainly possible, and they could become effective later based upon the local votes. We just wanted to provide that sort of formal step in the process to show that to the local governing bodies that the board itself had approved this. So that's why that action is recommended.
Mr. Gregory, let me ask you a point of order. Last meeting, we did take a vote on this to distribute that version. Does a vote need to be taken to distribute this version? So just speaking, not like, can we send this out and say, hey, you have two versions to look at so that we don't have to wait to vote again on another version? How can that be handled?
If the board is amenable to this one last minor revision that I've suggested this morning, you could vote, and I would suggest you vote to distribute it, to authorize staff to distribute it. That would be consistent. In order for the charter amendments to be effective, they do not have to receive a vote from the PlanRVA board. But in order to move it along in a consistent process with what you've done thus far, I would recommend a
But
vote.
I guess my question is, can both be presented?
I suppose both could be presented, but if differing versions were adopted by differing local governing bodies, that would foil the process.
Right. So what I'm hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, because it is still pretty early. If we send this one out, it nullifies the previous version. Is that what we're saying?
Well, it wouldn't serve to nullify the previous version necessarily, but I would suggest that it would supersede the previous version in preference to this version. And that would be the one sort of officially stamped with approval by the PlanRVA board. And that would take precedence, I would believe. Now, the local governing bodies, if one local governing body wanted to approve one version and the other local governing body approved a different one based upon a political decision or a policy decision, then that would, that's their prerogative, but it just wouldn't be effective.
Right.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So the reason I asked that question is that I'm hesitant really to cast a vote that I know will result in a budgetary problem for this organization. I'm just speaking personally. I do feel like on the executive committee, there is a duty to make it as best as possible for, dealing with this issue sort of without ensuring, I guess, for sure that we can't have an agreement on everything, leaves an issue kind of hanging out there on the budget side that I don't know that that's fair to staff. they're trying to plan for, their next fiscal year. And so that's why I asked the question.
Sure. No, I think it's a great question. And can I ask a clarifying question to either Ms. Heater or Mr. Gregory? Nothing in this has any budgetary impacts officially, correct? Like there's
That's
no
correct.
cap on the 250.
That's correct. And if you review, and I think Mr. Gregory could confirm this, but if you review the charter and the bylaws, there actually is no mention of our member dues calculation basis on population. That is just a decision of the board that is not prescribed in the charter or the bylaws. It simply states that if the dues are to be based on population, that the population figures shall be provided by the Weldon Cooper Center. Mr. Gregory, am I correct in that?
Generally, yes. It's addressed in Article 6 of the charter, which begins on the bottom of page 4 and then goes on to the top of page 5.
Could we scroll to that section, please?
And in section 2 it's 3 sections, 1, 2, and 3. And it directs that each member jurisdiction shall contribute funds to the commission in accordance with an annual budget approved prior to, and this is where you had specified that you wanted some flexibility in when that budget comes due to the timing of local budgets, but that's already in there. Prior to the beginning of the commission's fiscal year, provided that said annual budget is adopted by the affirmative vote of 3/4 of the voting seats present and voting. Section 2 addresses the population, how that population is to be determined, as Ms. Heater mentioned. In the event that the dues of a member jurisdiction are based on an estimate of population for the jurisdiction, the population estimate to be utilized will be the latest of the official U.S. Census count on the most recent preliminary population estimate prepared by the Weldon Cooper Center for Public Service at the University of Virginia.
Thank you both. So
I would read that it strongly implies that the two are linked, but it does not explicitly state that.
Okay.
I think is my assessment.
So at the end of the day, I like where Mr. Winslow is going. So this can be a decision of the full commission, or does it need to be a decision of the executive committee to say, hey, we have the option to send this version out or not? We already have a version that's out there. Localities will be choosing to vote on it. So is it that simple, or am I just being optimistic?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Peterson.
I think it would be irresponsible for a PlanRVA to send out 2 different versions of this thing. It's our responsibility to each of the jurisdictions to send it out with a recommendation. Now, whether it's this one or the other way is a decision, but that's not one we should ever send out both of them. We need to make a decision as to which way we want to go.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I might agree with, I actually definitely agree with Mr. Peterson here. I think sending out 2 versions and would only cause confusion in a situation where we've had a good deal of back and forth, and
Right.
that's
So, right. So what I'm saying rings true then. If we bring this up to the full commission and they decide, no, we don't want to send this version out, then we already have a version that's out there. And if we send this version out, then this is the version we're agreeing to.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
Okay. So then in the full commission meeting, I'm the one that has to move this along, I guess. So do we want, as the executive committee then, does this body want to come with a recommendation to the full committee, or propose this to the full committee and have the discussion there? I'm looking for y'all's input.
Mr. Chairman, this is Larry from Powhatan. We're going to have that discussion anyway. So if we want to give them a little guidance, that's fine. But I think once we open the topic, that discussion is going to happen, and it's going to take its own course. So I don't think it's that critical that we recommend this way or that way. We can give them the pluses and minuses, and then let them go.
Okay. And again, that's true. I'm not trying to be political. I'm truly from a point of order. I'm not sure exactly what we want as the executive committee to put our weight behind, so to speak, as opposed to just, being informed before the commission. So I appreciate the thoughts on that.
Mr. Chairman, I got a couple of questions for Eric, if that's all right.
Yes, please.
Okay, Eric, my first question comes from another member on the board in Powhatan, and I'm asking it. I think I know the answer pretty well, but I'm asking it out of courtesy because I said I would. Is there a possibility in the language of this revision that a person from, let's say, one locality can proxy for a representative in a different locality, the way it's worded or whatever? Is that a possibility?
No, I do not believe it is. The members with authority to cast votes are directed by their member jurisdiction. And if they are in some member jurisdiction could not, I don't believe, could authorize a member of another governing body to cast its votes. That's not possible. They don't have that statutory authority.
Okay, so
or authority in the charter.
Right, and I'll just use, I don't know, Goochland and Powhatan are similar, and a lot of us know each other. So somebody from Goochland can't wake up in the morning and say, "Man, I'm really busy. I've got to get to work and do this and that. I'm going to miss the meeting." They can't call somebody in Powhatan and say, "Hey, I'm going to give you my proxy, and I want you to vote this way." They can't do that, right?
No, the charter, neither the charter nor the governing law allow for proxy votes.
Okay, thanks.
The only way that votes may be cast in the place of a member from a respective governing body is in the case of an alternate who has been pre-designated and given that authority.
Okay, I understand, and that's the answer that I came up with. But like I said, I'm trying real hard not to say asking for a friend, but I actually am. All right, the second thing is, could you please, to avoid confusion on my part, I'll be honest, can you very quickly, I don't want to take up too much time, but Eric, could you run down the sum of the changes as it stands right now? Because I'm going to shoot an email out to my colleagues this morning, and I want to make sure I've got it right. So the sum of all the changes we're looking at as of this moment, and it can be quick.
Okay, so you want me to run through the document as quickly as I can?
Well, you don't even need to do that for my sake. I'm doing bullets on an email to the other 4 colleagues here in Powhatan, and I just want to make sure I've got an inclusive list and that it's fairly correct, but it can be a very shotgun method here.
Okay, I'll focus in on the most pertinent. The first one with most pertinence here is the amendment to Article 1, Section 2, which allows the headquarters of planning of PlanRVA to be centrally located within Planning District 15, rather than being required to be within the city of Richmond. Okay, so that was actually one of the main goals of this charter amendment, was to allow for that flexibility, particularly with regard to the fact that the office lease is coming up in 2022, and the body or the agency desired to have more flexibility about where it might choose to locate. So it just provides more flexibility there to be centrally located within the planning district.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Then you move on to Article 2, Section 2. And that's where we made the changes to allow greater flexibility among the governing body members to appoint a single member, for instance, to represent all of the voting seats that the locality holds. Okay, Now, that only applies to governing body members. That does not apply to planning commission or citizen members. That way, you don't have to have every single person from your governing body who holds a vote to attend every single meeting in order to cast that vote. A single member can be authorized to cast multiple votes from their governing body. Okay, that was a big change.
Right.
And everybody understands that, I believe, at this point.
I got that one.
Okay.
Thanks.
Now we are recommending, if you look at the notes on the side there, a bylaw change to define quorum, because we don't want the planning commission members and the citizen members to potentially outnumber the governing body members in terms of a quorum. So we're going to recommend a bylaw change to, assuming this is adopted, to define quorum as commission members representing a majority of the voting seats shall constitute a quorum. So that will protect the authority of the governing body elected members in how the agency is run. Next, if you go to the alternate members, how they are determined, it's section 5 there on the top of page 3. The question there that we're resolving is, can there be multiple alternate members from a governing body appointed to cast the votes? And the answer to that is, based upon the state code, no. You have one alternate member that is authorized to represent one member of your governing body. So you don't have this floating alternate or multiple alternates. You have one alternate. Okay. And then the Article 3 changes address how those how the terms of office are defined, and then the additional amendment that I suggested this morning to address the authority of the alternate. And the remainder of the changes are basically housekeeping changes to make change the reference from governmental subdivision to jurisdictions or member jurisdictions, and to clean up the reference to the state code provision. And that's the sum.
Thank you for taking the time to do that. And I typed bullets on this email as you were speaking, so I'm ready to go, and I'll shoot that out after the full body meeting, see what happens there. Thank you for doing that.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman.
I have a question. Hello?
Yes, Dr. Newville.
Yeah. Yes. So I want to be absolutely clear. Our body reviewed and discussed and were prepared to move forward with the last version that we received. And so I want to be clear now that we now have a modification to the last version that was just given today by Eric. And so now that will go back out, because then, which is fine, but we need the decision, because then I'll need to take that back to the council body to review that revision. While I don't think it will be of major concern, it must still go back to the body. So
Correct.
I want to be clear, are we sending now this, the current draft, the version that Eric has just added an additional edit to the bodies for review and decisioning?
My understanding from my previous question, Mr. Gregory, was if we vote in the affirmative, this would go out and supersede the previous version. That's correct.
Yes, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
so we're not trying to send out okay. All right.
Yes,
So-
Dr. Newville, I'm sorry about that, and I apologize, but yeah, yes, ma'am, I believe that's correct. Assuming the PlanRVA board votes to approve this and authorize the staff to send it out, we would do that, and I would communicate that to Haskell Brown and other member jurisdiction legal counsel so that it's clear. But yes, ma'am, and I apologize, but that's the way these things go.
And I
No
apologize.
worries.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Dr. Newman.
Thank you.
and I probably confused that by being the newbie in this, just to see if that was an option. So not that I was recommending it, but so I apologize if I confused anything. Okay,
Mr.
so
Chairman,
Mr. Peterson.
I apologize for being late getting on here this morning. For some reason, I had in my mind that this was an 8:30 meeting, but I missed the, I guess I came in after Mr. Gregory recommended an amendment. Was this a significant change that you put in this morning?
Yeah, Mr. Peterson, the piece of the amendment that was removed was the additional tiered chart for additional members if population exceeds the 250,000. So the chart that's showing.
Okay, but that was in our packet, though. That's not a change from what was in the packet.
Right.
Correct.
Mr. Chairman, I can explain that to Mr. Peterson real quick. It'll only take
Please.
a moment. What I suggested, Mr. Peterson, was a minor tweak that we just caught this yesterday to Article 3, Section 3, which is on page 3. And the new language, or the section, would be changed to read, each alternate member appointed to the commission shall hold the same voting authority as a designated governing body official. And that is only to make that section consistent with the Section 5 above. Okay, so if we don't do that, then there might be room for confusion about what authority the alternate member holds. Okay, so I just want to make those consistent. That's all that is.
Okay, I have one further question on that, though, because the alternates, as we are operating now, can represent either of or any of the elected voting seats. But now we're saying that. Pardon? Go ahead, Ms. Heater. I know that's the way we've been doing it. Whether we've been doing it correctly or not, I don't know.
That's your last statement. It would be accurate. Technically speaking, the alternate is supposed to be designated to a single member. I think that over the years, Mr. Gregory, correct me if I'm wrong, but the charter agreement that is in place today requires that there be one alternate and that alternate be assigned to a specific governing body member. We have, in practice, I think, been more flexible than the charter actually prescribes.
Mr. Chairman, if I might follow up on that comment, Mrs. Heater is exactly right. This interpretation, which, or you might call this a reform to what is actually required by the state code, has been, we looked at that very hard, looked at the code. It's section 15.24203, subsection B4 of the Code of Virginia, which states an alternate may serve in lieu of one of the elected officials of each of the governing bodies of the participating localities. Okay, and so we were conferring about that with all of the local legal counsel representing the member jurisdictions. And that was the interpretation that we all agreed upon and came to, was that, you can't have a floating alternate. You can't have an alternate. You can't even have multiple alternates. You can have one alternate that represents, that serves in lieu of one of the elected officials. So this is sort of a reform to what the statute actually allows.
Okay, that clarifies. I just knew we weren't doing it that way.
Right. So folks, this has been great conversation, and we are blessed to be able to have it again in 4 minutes. So I believe, Ms. Heater, you've offered to defer your last item, and we can talk about that in the full session. Just to give you a heads up, we're going to be looking to defer the payroll frequency proposal. There's been some information that came to light that the staff would like some more time to deal with that. Without any objections, I'm going to go ahead and defer this, or no, what am I doing? I'm adjourning this meeting until the next meeting. Thank you all very much for your participation, and thank you for a great year. So see you in 3 minutes.
Thank you.